so we understood that latest in Fiori space was Fiori 3.0, and we have seen the journey of the roadmap which SAP is suggesting going forward, and how the technology is evolving. We understood, and we have seen a quick demo. So today we'll have to see the first application as such, and we'll try to understand the jargons which are popularly used around in this space. So I think you might have heard these two names called SAP UFI and SAP Fiori. So we need to understand the difference. So SAP, coins new words from time to time. So it's SAP way of branding that some new technology has come into the market, and that's how they coin new words. So and time to time, the names and words, what they initially refer to, can change as well. So right now, one we have something called basic one initially from right from beginning, which we are hearing is SAP Fiori. So what exactly SAP Fiori is? So right now we have seen yesterday that around 12,000 apps were shipped by SAP. So these 12,000 apps were exclusively built by SAP. So there's a clear difference. So like us developers, we can build as well, and we can build for certain customers as well. But this Fiori apps, 12,000 apps, can be used by any of the SAP customers. That means SAP has exclusive rights over it, and all the apps can be tweaked and modified, and with SAP's discretion. Like, see, SAP provides them, so they have the complete sole rights over those apps, etc. So SAP, what he does is, what are apps it is shipping it, and it is branded those apps, stating that we are following strict guidelines. So you'll have seamless experience across all the 12,000 apps. If you're using one app, the same user experience you'll have with all the 12,000 apps. So SAP is taking care such a great care in terms of design. And so for that product, they have given a branded name called Fiori. So when they say SAP Fiori apps, they are exclusively designed and shipped and maintained by SAP. So all the 12,000 apps which we have seen in the apps library yesterday are shipped by SAP. So when we say Fiori, those are officially Fiori apps are shipped by SAP and designed by SAP. So this is point number one, right? So what is exactly SAP UFI? So SAP UFI is the framework name. So like AngularJS and everything. So SAP UFI is a framework name. So it is built based upon JavaScript, and it uses HTML5, CSS, and other open source frameworks relies on it. And the complete control structure which we use to build such apps is nothing but using SAP UFI framework. So basically, when you say SAP UFI apps, those are custom apps. When I say custom apps, those are not shipped by SAP but built for a specific customer, or you have built for yourself. So clear? So when you say custom UFI app or Fiori like apps, though many of them use for the custom, for the client which we are using as a Fiori apps, but technically they are not qualified as Fiori apps, because it is support of the applications is not that provided by SAP. If you ask for SAP support, they definitely do not responsible for that things, because it's exclusively built. You might be working for some certain customer, and you have built for those customers. So when we say SAP UFI apps or anything, they refer to custom UFI apps, and actual SAP UFI refers to the JavaScript framework which is developed by SAP, right? So like I said, initially SAP UFI framework came with a license, and alongside, SAP wanted to keep even attract the open stack developer community. So they do not want to lose on rich developers out there. See, when you have strong guys out there, if you always restrict them, who is going to lose the benefit? At the end, SAP customers, because SAP customers, you are reducing the developer community. So what they are trying to do is, there is not much SAP is doing in terms of making all the free stuff, but there is a platform called OpenUFI. So OpenUFI is open source. It's like open source version of SAP UFI framework. The same framework in the when you do not need any license. Like in this case, SAP UFI framework comes only if you purchase an SAP license. So if you have S4HANA or if you have any SAP product, then only you have the license to build SAP UFI apps or anything. So defaultly, what we are saying is, unless you do not have an SAP, you cannot actually use this particular framework. So to avoid that particular thing, so what they have done is OpenUFI is like you need not to purchase any SAP license. So it is free to use. So for your non-commercial scenarios or anything with whatever you wanted to experiment, like some new innovations in space in this space, if you want to do anything, you can do. Probably if you are familiar or not, see, I think many frameworks get popular because of one or the other product. Angular, I think I'm not sure how authentic it is, but in the developer forums, it was they constantly debate that Netflix was once initially built using Angular JS framework. So they are like, unless something gets popular, the buzzword keeps keep going on that. Okay, this framework, if we build such a fancy application, we can build. So it's all breaks down to how we are going to use the framework to build that niche products. So OpenUFI is allows yes, if anything happens, then probably all of a sudden it comes to limelight. But that's a daydream. So OpenUFI, though they are providing it, I think there are like some of the projects which many of the community. So in recent past, some we call it as tooling. So some, there was there will be one or the other people. See, if you see VLC, Mozilla, all these are open source products, which open source community they keep on developing it. So one quick reference for all official guide for SAP UFI framework is ufi.sap.com. So this is a official reference which we have to refer and follow for all our. This is we call it an API reference. So all developers see now. So this is our nodes getting started. So this is an official reference. So whenever you are building any application or anything, so where you have to refer for SAP UFI is this particular API reference. So API references are the way it's like a developer book. So any framework now what we follow is application programming interface. So this it's kind of how we have an agile practice for developments. So similarly, any codes etc. for the developer, if we have to give them, they give it in terms of API reference. So in this, if you wanted to see follow any new updates or anything, so they share here what's new in this version. So if you want to check out, this is currently the version which SAP has released. So one refers to a major version, and second .87 refers to a minor version. And this is bug fixes. .0 refers to bug fixes. Any bug fixes which SAP released for 87 version reflects the last digit. So one refers to it's a major version. No, still it is 1.87. So any new features which were now in this case they mentioned that and have support for IE11. So in from 8.7 onwards, you no longer cannot use IE11 at all. You have to use Edge browser. So it is no longer IE. It's a fad, very 10-15 years old. So SAP doesn't offer any support. So, and they'll introduce one more control called expandable text. So they're like any new features which are rolled out, we'll come to know as a snapshot over here. And all the documentation. So read me first, how to set up tutorials, essentials. So whenever you have any question or anything, see what exactly is the V2 model and what exactly is the V4 model. So you can look around for the actual functionality, full functionality from the documentation here from this placeholder. So if you search over here, you'll come across okay. In space of we'll gradually talk about these jargons, but the backend data how we access is using the OData channel. So we call it as OData open data. So this is currently the version is V4. So OData has V2. V2 was very popular, and V3 was it did not went through the necessary clearance, and then V4 was officially onboarded from a couple of years, but now it is coming into mainstream. So the latest version in terms of accessing data from the backend is through OData channel, and the current version is OData V4. So all kinds of documentation, so how to do etc. Anytime, any point of time, not only just now, but anytime. This is a placeholder for referring. And like I said, API reference talks about all the controls. Like I said, there are 850 controls key thing to look at API reference is like in yesterday's class, how we discussed there, like native libraries as well as traditional libraries. So we need to understand which library we need to use for which use case. So that is the key in filtering out the API reference. So when we come to API reference, every now and then we'll be using this particular section called API reference. So in this, like I say, initially they used to call sap.m as mobile libraries. Now they are calling it with the abbreviation, they change it. But basically, for traditional way of building, see M you can refer to as mobile, and they are like for traditional UFI apps. So when I say traditional UFI apps, they are by default responsive and they work on all the devices. So desktop, etc., mobile and tablet. So if you're using sap.m library and for the phone, so they'll be compatible for. So we need to take some additional developer precautions. But as long as you're using libraries shipped under sap.m. So when I say sap.m, if you see here, this is if I collapse it, there are like two areas here: jQuery and SAP. And there are like some experimental APIs and deprecated APIs. If I expand SAP, in this there are like many other nodes: APF, base, chart, collaboration, FE, etc. So in this, what I'm referring to is sap.m. So when you refer to sap.m libraries, here you'll have bunch of controls. All are together put together. They call it as M library. So if you're using any of these libraries, so if you wanted to build your application, and if you're building using this, they come with default of compatible with all the devices. But if you're opting any of the, see, suppose there is a customer who asks only, say, suppose I do not need any mobile or phone solution, sorry, I mean tablet solution. So all I need is for the desktop itself. Then you can pretty much use any of the outside libraries as well. Sometimes there will be some few combination of MA with other layouts, etc. We'll use it. Charts as well, we'll be using it. So in space of charts as well, there are like couple of libraries. Like we have mobile charts, like where you can use small charts which within the table, etc. So those all are mobile compatible. At the same time, there are like desktop only charts which are huge in size, and according to the needs of the scenario, customer scenario, we can use this as well. So basically, as a simple thumb rule, what we need to remember is under API reference, in order to build traditional UFI or Fiori apps, all we have to use is sap.m libraries. So if you're using these controls, then our apps are compatible across all the platforms. And if you wanted to build for desktop only, you are free to use any of the APIs available here. So in this case, if you use any of these libraries, it is fine. So under chart, you might have some other different ways of doing it. And for the common libraries will be there. So etc. will be used. So this is the one takeaway which we have. Right. And similar to, I think these are everybody might be familiar who is acquainted. So the same controls, if you want to see some pictorial in the code of it. So suppose if you see here, the moment you come to samples, there's a button over there. So how do you use these buttons? And if you wanted to go to API directly, you can use this API reference link, and it will directly take you, instead of drilling down, it will within the API, it will take you to the control. Here it will give you the developer technical information. Like in this case, it will give you what action it does. So for simple one, we don't need a description, but some of the controls do need description to better understand what it does. So this is how we have the basic information. And there is a property section which you can use. So when I say properties, these are the features of this particular button. Fine. I'll dig deep into like what all different ways we can use this API to consume this particular thing. But basically, in this button, what are features SAP UFI framework is providing, and what we can do. Active icon. See, if there is an icon, we want to place an icon over there, and on click of that icon, if you want to take it to a URL, then this is a property we have to use. When you use active icon, the moment you click on the icon, it will take you to some URL. But if you take a traditional HTML5 buttons, so the difference between why people go for framework and not with this plain old HTML5 is, in HTML5 you'll have just one control for button. If you say button, it has basic functionality. If you click, it will just open the desired task. Either you say to open it a pop-up, You ask it to open into link, etc. But in case of framework, you have all the flexibility. So what SAP has done is it wanted to reduce the developer work. How does it really help? So if you see any button which we see on, you can follow W3 schools for introductory, practice of any HTML tags, etc., and CSS as well. So if you see any of the buttons over here, so this is plain button which uses CSS with HTML. So this is just a button control. It doesn't have any more functionality. If any functionality you have to add, you have to write the CSS code. So now if you see there's a hover, there's a color flicker. If you exactly notice it, so there's a color flicker the moment I place on the mouse hover. So this is achieved using CSS. But imagine a case where you are building a business application and every now and then for each button, wherever you are using it, everywhere if you have to add the CSS animations, etc., will not it repetitive task you are redoing every now and then, right? So to avoid these kind of scenarios, what SAP has done is, so let's not redo the same task again and again. Let's give it as a feature. So what they have did is, so they have given a button as a control, and they have given features as well. So active icon does the task of on if there's an icon, if you click on it, anything, so it will automatically become a hyperlink. And similarly, like you can along the button, if you wanted to, instead of text alone, you can want to place a button, etc., we can provide an icon, and whether icon should come on the first or the last, so icon first, and text direction as well. So there are like different types of buttons as well. So within these buttons, they're like accept, attention, back, critical. So different types of buttons, kind of properties. If you set that button type as ghost, negative, etc., you have lots of other different variants of buttons framework provides using the properties. So how to have a first glimpse? So say how does it look, etc. How do we use? So for that, what we have is in the samples. I'm coming back to samples. So samples gives us to it takes you directly to the API reference, and it shows you the different variants. So now if you see what are button types you are seeing, these are the button types. So you can put it without any border, etc., just default one. On hover it comes. So if you see the flicker, etc., automatically you have it. So for rigid button, they are putting straight away as red flicker. For accepted, right, straight away they're giving green flicker. So advantage is simple using a property called accept. So you're achieving all the animation. Whereas here you had to deal with all the CSS, etc., for the plain button. So this way, for based on use cases, straight away we can use the different scenarios. So in this case, if you wanted to have some bold and API reference to highlight, so we had a button with blue, we call it as emphasized button. So similar way, we have to disable the button, etc. So if you see it's only an icon, this is also a button. So all these things which we are seeing, all are buttons with icon as the down arrow, as this particular arrow, range arrow, and etc. So how to see this code? So if you see here, there's a uh, this is as one with curly braces which you have to opt to look at the code. So in this case, all the buttons which they placed, how it has been used. For the default button, this is how the tag is being defined button, and these are the properties features which we said, this we call it as properties, and this is what the in the API reference which we have seen. So text is one property, so press is one property. So similarly, there are like different properties given for each of these buttons. If you see, if you notice carefully, type is the one which is differentiating for all the properties. Accept is turning type as accept. If you give a feature, it automatically becomes a green color button. Whenever it's an accept scenario, save scenario, those cases we use this particular type as accept. Similarly, when you say reject for approving, rejecting, etc. cases, whenever you have to cancel button, etc., we can use type as reject. So this is a quick glimpse of how we'll use API reference. You'll check the samples for any control, see, have a first-hand understanding of how the control looks, then dig deep into the API and check out all the properties and utilize it for our scenarios. So this is how we walk through and access each of the properties. There are many more ways of accessing these controls. We'll discuss, but for plain understanding, when you we're getting started, this is how we have to use the API reference. Clear? So
Yes.
now we have understood what is OpenUFI, what is this one. So this is SAP UFI framework. So I'll show you how OpenUFI looks like. So this is the OpenUFI platform. So openufi.org is the placeholder for this is SAP API. So first we talked about SAP UFI framework. So official URL to refer to framework is this is the URL. And when we talk about the second part, OpenUFI. So all the customers which we work except they'll use SAP UFI framework because they have an SAP license. So none of the users will use OpenUFI. This is for your checking out if we are wanted to build for yourself any website of yourself own website etc. You can pretty much use this learnings to make your own website etc. So here if you see there are like why I say is we need to understand. So when we have free license, why do we have to? So can I use any without purchasing SAP server? Can any user purchase the existing Oracle DB etc. And straight away previously we said ERP uses Oracle DB. Can we use within Oracle etc. This OpenUFI framework? Yes, pretty much you can do, but the support will be very limited. So when I say support, so if you see like tightly integrated. So Fiori is used for exclusively for SAP related scenarios and not for the outside scenarios. May not be the kind of controls and frameworks which we are using may not be very tightly suited to other environments. So that's the reason OpenUFI, though it is open license, it is not very much productive enough for non-SAP environments. When I say this, when there is a limitation as well. Here, all the if you see check the same documentation. Here they gave browse demo kit. If you refer to both look the same, but there is a key difference in the libraries available deep inside. If you see, it starts with openufi.hana.ondemand.com. Probably you can this as in this case this is our API reference. So if you see both look the same. If you see this particular one and this particular one on the home, if I go to home page there, so both of them look the same. But when I say I said like SAP ships lots of other controls. The M part they have written the both places the same. But in this case they'll reduce some of the controls. If you check out here some of the controls out there, if you see there are like lots of other libraries. If you see here there are like limited set of libraries. If you're able to notice here, so I'll collapse both of them. If you
Mm.
see here, when I expand here in the OpenUFI, there are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, some 5 to 6 libraries are available. Whereas if you check out here, there are like lots of other libraries. So all the new innovations, etc., it will keep to itself for the SAP UFI version. Whereas for the general community, it gives, you see, it is very pretty much the same for traditional UFIs, but for the some other native scenarios, etc., for which we were talking about, um, those all things SAP is not releasing to the general license. So this is a key difference. There is a limited set of libraries which are available in case of OpenUFI, whereas for the SAP UFI you have complete innovations which SAP is doing right away, straight away. Uh, if you have this 1.8 version, you can leverage all the latest innovations which SAP is offering. So this is a key difference from developer standpoint to understand between OpenUFI and SAP UFI. Both are UFI frameworks, which is open license, which is SAP shipped license. And SAP Fiori, when if anybody, if one who doesn't know, then it says it's a Fiori, but Fiori is not actually a framework or anything. It's a brand name coined by SAP to recognize that it has built a suite of apps, like how they call S4 HANA as a product. As for SAP Fiori is a bunch of apps which SAP has built for the benefit of all the SAP customers. So this is how the key difference which we understood today. And like I said, how we are referring to similarly, this part we have seen already. For check out this Fiori apps etc. We have apps library, which is you can type out in Google itself. It will straight become Fiori apps library. So this is a similar to a Play Store how we have. So this is a Play Store for SAP Fiori apps. Only difference is like in regular iOS and etc. The moment you open it, you can install it all by yourself. But here it's a really big headache if you have to do this. So for that, explicitly we need to understand SAP server, what exactly server customer is in, and we need to understand the product he is using, and accordingly the relevant apps etc. We have to, because we have a huge ecosystem in SAP. So specific modules, specific customer may not be using the all SAP products licenses. So if you see here, so we have latest product is S4 HANA. So all S4 HANA apps, if you want to install etc. If customer has S4 HANA, blindly go for this particular second tab, all apps for S4 HANA, and that is a good place. If customer is on old stack, like if he's on ERP, then go for SAP Fiori apps or Business Suite. So there you can check out for the previous version of SAP's flagship product. So these are the two ways. And like I said, there are like other technologies using which they are building it. So exclusively Fiori apps they have kept as SAP Fiori apps for S4 HANA. So all apps over S4 HANA refers to maybe they have come up with different other ways of building applications. If any other technology or any other ways they are building it, all they're shipping it. Maybe existing T codes also they might have used screen personas. Screen personas is another space where they use it exclusively. See, classic UIs, you know, so traditional GUI we use it, right? They have each T code has lots of fields, like 30, 40 fields. What screen persona does is it's technically a wizard based drag and drop kind of environment where out of 30 fields, if frequently if you are using only 5 fields for taking input and only 2 fields really allow you to take a decision. That means if you enter a sales order number, then the required fields will be automatically populated. So you need not to look at all the other unwanted fields, correct? So like I said, out of 1 lakh T codes, if we are simplifying only 76 in HR space, who is going to take care of their headache of other T codes which they are using as on date, right? They need some solution, right? So for that, screen personas is used. Screen personas, what it does is classic boring UIs. They'll make it some rich looking, and they'll can hide some fields. They can add some fields. Like they can do minimalistic cosmetic to the existing classic UIs. So that is the space where for all the apps which are not yet available in Fiori can be used using screen personas. Clear. So there could be certain apps which SAP has simplified in SAP S4HANA, and those can be shipped as part of S4HANA all apps kind of category. So this is one way. I'm just giving an illustration. Similar Lighthouse, Abel for only cloud. So these are like different other ways SAP ships. So here what they say is Lighthouse is like they explain the scenario. Like yesterday we were talking about this one, right? So new innovations etc. So certain new innovations etc. Like SAP will use guided kind of approach, say how to leverage those new ways of like AI ranking etc. So the Lighthouse scenarios are like they'll have some exclusive to promote this technology etc. They'll build some cool app etc. So from the regular apps, these apps generally stand out kind of. So certain things etc. they design. So it has various uh, understanding from time to time. So some specific apps they categorize as Lighthouse apps. So where SAP positions them as different kind of apps out of the regular traditional apps. Traditional apps does the regular job. These apps have something or the other features being packed along with them. And exclusively cloud apps as well, like I said. So like these all are what we are talking as for HANA product is on premise. They're like cloud version of SAP products as well. So exclusively for cloud version, what are the Fiori apps available, etc. You can check out based on the Fiori apps library. So we'll further dig into any specific app, etc. in detail, but this is a placeholder to understand which all Fiori apps are available for SAP platform. So we can check it out. So this is a theoretical part, and this is a technical way of looking at each of them as a developer standpoint, right? So users talk about this when developers talk about these things. So similarly, OpenStack, this is how you can further explore these URLs where you can check out. Like I said, there are some open source projects as well, and so if you check out some place, you can check this project section. So here there are like these are like open source projects which built by SAP developer community, etc. So this also refers to the GitHub page where these are the other some other might be built across for the benefit of larger audience. They have built for some other components, right? So UFI tooling inspector, etc. So this is about OpenUFI, etc. So let's have some quick tools, etc. Get started, and let's see some, you know, a quick hello world program, etc. for refresher. So one basic tools which we require is, one, we need to have Visual Studio Code. So you can go to just you can type of Visual Studio Code, and this will take you to, this is a new ID which SAP recommends. So previously, so this is like Eclipse. If you're familiar, Eclipse used to be the de facto. Later came SAP Web ID, and now even SAP Web ID, SAP has stopped the updates. No, so all from 2021, SAP recommends SAP Business Application Studio. It is nothing but the back code is Visual Studio Code. So like how Eclipse, we call it as HANA Studio. HANA Studio is nothing but Eclipse itself. It's branded and rebranded as HANA Studio, right? Similarly, Visual Studio Code is the code base for SAP Business Application Studio. So when they say SAP Business Application, it's nothing but Visual Studio Code for local development for our purpose, like not for the customer. So if we are using it, we can use Visual Studio Code for doing our basic exercises, etc. So this is one quick tool which you can install. So Visual Studio Code is the tool which we use for. This is a free version, so there is a developer version which Microsoft provides. So Visual Studio Code tool helps you to do for the in the local system for your practice, etc. Okay. And if you are using for any customer now, in going forward, see, it's still this is introduced only 2 months back. Okay, and from the last 6 months, there is everybody is trying their hands on this, but there are like lots of changes happening in this space. But for the benefit of as future, if any projects we are working, we have to work on this. We had to, though we know that there are lots of changes, but still it's good we practice all access on BAS, because we'll get familiar with future. If you are working on these projects, it will help you. But if you are comfortable using Web ID, there is other ways of accessing Web ID still, and Eclipse as well. So we can use any tool for that matter for understanding the concepts. But if you practice using BAS, it gives you a future ready. So you can be ready for the future use cases. So that's the only thing. So SAP BAS is nothing but Business Application Studio, which SAP recommends going forward to use. And this will become mainstream by within 6 months. Already, most of the customers who are using are already upgraded with Business Studio. From Web ID to Business Application Studio, they have been upgraded. But for the rest of the community, so in clients, we'll use Business Studio ID for production development, okay, production releases, etc. And apart from Visual Studio Code for the local environment, in case of BAS, all the plugins, etc. required for Fiori development are straight available because SAP manages all the things. But in case of local, we need to install the plugins, etc. For that, we need Node.js. So Node.js is an application server. So it allows us to do lots of stuff. So if you are not familiar with Node.js environment gives us plenty of tools, etc. to play around with all the code. If you all the plugins, any updates are there, it will automatically, whenever we open, it installs and updates all the files, etc. So once we install it, it takes care of all our activities. For developers, that is really a big advantage. We need not update any of the softwares, etc. for the developer environment. It automatically does all the task legwork. So one placeholder is this is Visual Studio Code, you can search. Similarly, Node.js. Here, based on your environment, you can check out for LTS version. LTS version is one long-term version. So this is relatively stable version. You can just download this, and you can just download this. Once both are available, then you can follow the steps which currently we are doing to get started for. So I'm just so I have installed in my system. So I'm just opening Visual Studio Code, and it's just a wizard based, so pretty much they should be available. And if you are not familiar with Visual Studio Code platform or anything, so for that matter, any ID, because SAP ABAP, etc., we use inbuilt tools, etc., which SAP GUI has. But it's not the case for web development. Web development has to be done with different set of tools. this has lots of new features which gives developers some flexibility to play around. So once you are in this, first you need to go to terminal. So I'll give a quick walkthrough, but because uh, here in new terminal you can select new terminal, and it asks for the project. So you can select any space, whatever default space you have. And first thing you have to do is, after installing Node, Node minus V. So this is nothing but Node version. So if Node is properly installed, then automatically this Visual Studio Code will detect it. If you get any error, Node minus V, then you have to either restart your Visual Studio Code, or you have to restart your you know once you restart your laptop, so that it makes sure that Node.js is automatically detected. So in the system, in the laptop which you're working on, after installing Node, you have to do this check. So you have to go to terminal, and you have to select new terminal. And if it asks any project location, etc., that is nothing but where you wanted to have this all the files. So either you can, by default it will create one space, you can use that space, or you can create select one open workspace, and you can create one folder where you want it. In this case I just created projects one workspace, and I just selected to save all the settings, etc., in this place. So by default, when you go to terminal, it will ask you just create one folder name, then you are good to start with this. So this is a basic check we'll do. So once you have this available, so that means we have our Visual Studio and Node.js are available. Now we have to install our Fiori plugins. So here in this IDE, we have something called, if you have see this, so this is called extensions. So work area, first one by default is work area, and the tab out here, so which has square. So this is extensions. So we can use this extensions for any development. Visual Studio Code supports all kinds of platforms. If you want to work on AngularJS, you want to work on React.js, you want to work on any technology, all the plugins are open sourcely available. So all open source libraries will be available here. In this case, SAP is officially shipping Fiori plugins as well. So if you type Fiori, so then you will get something called, you have lots of options, but you have to pick extension pack. SAP Fiori Tools extension pack. So this is the one which will help us to get all the APIs, etc. get installed. So within this extension pack, you'll have all the sub libraries. If you see other such results, you see tools, application, etc. You have to just click on install. Once you install, around 6-7 plugins are there. All plugins which are useful for our development, etc. will be straight away available for usage. So you have to do Fiori Tools extension pack. So I'll write it down. So once you have Node.js, open terminal, new terminal, and just type of Node minus V. So this will take you to, this is a check for Node.js version, and then go to extensions tab, and then use Fiori as a keyword, and Fiori extension pack is the one we need to install. So this will give us all the required tools required for our development. Clear? So these are the things which you do once we have this. In this case, I have already installed it. So once you have these things ready, that means you are good to start with Fiori apps development in your own laptop system, etc. Right? So there are like few things here. If you wanted to frequently using, you can set your shortcuts for this one. So from the settings, you can keyboard shortcuts. Here you can change what are settings you're comfortable. So instead of every time navigating, you can make your own shortcuts. So in this case, second most frequently one what we use after terminal is like command prompt instructions. So we can do all the instructions through command prompt. For that we use terminal. So when they say new terminal, we are doing any command prompt instructions we want to do, we'll go there. If any install plugins we want to access, like we have installed now Fiori tools, for that we use command palette, Control Shift V. So view tab, if you come to command palette, here all the installed plugins will be accessible. Here again, once you if that extension is successfully installed, once again close the Visual Studio Code and reopen it. For the, if you are not able to see, if you type Fiori, if you're not able to see any of these drop down options, that means either the extension is not properly installed, or you haven't yet restarted the Visual Studio Code after installing the extension. So first time when we install it, so then you should be able to see these particular options. So I'm going to select Fiori Open Application Generator as option. So each time whenever we open, it checks for some updates and then it updates the tools and extensions. So just give it a moment. So now if you see, we got straight away the Fiori, wizard. So using this wizard, like Business Object Studio, previously it used to provide these kind of wizards where it creates the basic folder structure required for our application development. So to reach this stage, sometimes with Fiori tools, now we are getting this all plugins and add-ons. If you do not see this particular, tiles, etc. add-ons, what you can do is you can go to this explore and install generators. All these cards which you're seeing, see Ori page card, list report, work list card. These cards are, they are plugins. So each plugin will give you a specific thing. Once you click on explore and install generators, here you have a such shortcuts. So here for the which development plugins which you are looking at, we can check out this area. So in this case, you can either search for UFA or Fiori. So anything is fine. So here if you see generator Fiori, for Fiori, what all plugins are available. So there is a different versions of it. You can check for the latest one. So here in this case, 1.14 was the latest. So just install this particular plugin. So there are like lots of other plugins. So for the Fiori space, in the UFS space, if you check, there could be one or the other, even open source developers will be shipping it, as well as SAP also will be shipping it. So this one is SAP shipped one. So what we installed is, even the wizard is SAP extension. So if you can check here SAP SC, sometimes be careful. Here extension will be placed by some other third-party vendors as well, and they could come with some any other unwanted bug fixes, etc. So this is shipped by SAP SC. So SAP is officially providing plugins, so we can rely on this source. So that is one we have to watch out when you are checking out there. So if you do not see cards, go and install. Select SAP UFA or SAP Fiori as a track and select the first one which displays for you as generator Fiori. So this is a step number one. So once you have it, this you should pretty much see under a drop down two options: Fiori elements and Fiori freestyle. So the one Fiori elements, previously they were called smart controls. So what they mean by Fiori elements is, so they require zero code or low code. So you need not to code at all. So if you are an app developer, pretty much you can design, without any front-end development knowledge, you can build it. But there are catches. What you can build is, what are you seeing the template? So in this case, if you see, they gave some template called list report. So if you want an application which just looks this way, if you're able to see the screen, so this looks this way. So some table records and so some table records are there, and then you have some search filter. So this simple functionality kind of, if you are familiar with this kind of, if your requirement is just to show a table with some such option, then you can directly use this particular approach, low code approach. So output will be this one. You cannot make any changes to the controls. You cannot add any control. You cannot add any button. There will be minimalistic, like label changes, etc. you can do, but not pretty much more as on it. So eventually there is one more called work list, where it's a tabbed approach, where instead of too many search bar filters, it will have data with icon. So some icons are there which denote each tab. So tab structure. So this is work list. Similarly, with the charts, there is one called analytical list, and we'll talk in detail about all these templates. But for the basic understanding, if you select this option for your elements, all you can build is what are the template provides only those functionalities. All you have to select is the OData service from which the data has to be pulled, and then you're done. Now in this case, we are going to select freestyle. For all our UFX developments, we use freestyle development. Freestyle development also has templates, and here we can play around with all the API reference. So SAP has shipped 850 controls, right? So all those controls using which we can build our own custom applications. So all the customers which we work, we use freestyle development approach to build new scenarios. So in this also there is a worklist application as well as mass detail application. If you see, mass detail application is mostly meant for approval scenarios. Okay, So this particular layout will come inbuilt, and on top of it, you can start your development. So you are reusing the code. Always you need not to, in order to achieve this particular structure, you need not to start coding from beginning. So SAP provides till there, what a structure skeleton is required, it will automatically populate the code as a template. And from there, you can build upon your use case. So it's reducing developers work. So in this case, if you select SAP UF application, it doesn't have any template. It is just a dummy page. So now we'll select SAP UF application and click next. It says to provide the data source, so where you wanted to connect to the backend system. So in this case, there are like multiple ways. So connecting to the SAP system, or directly providing the OData service URL, and there are like other ways of doing it. We'll discuss in detail. For now, you can just select none. Select next. Give view name. So view name, it says as view, leave it as this. Here all the projects are module driven, so I'll explain much about that, but for now you can pretty much retain everything. Namespace you can give as UX or any namespace. So here keep deployment, launchpad configuration, etc. as all as no. And I think there's already a name called project one, so I'll just rename it to demo. So this is, I'm just naming as you name it any name, just to finish. This will take a moment, and once it is ready, we'll be able to see the. So here the first demo, I think it's installing it. So this is the structure which is created. So if you see, we got a folder structure with necessary, structure to manage our project, etc. So this has a complete folder structure which is required for us. So we'll dig deep into the folder structure, etc. later. But for the simplest scenario, what I'm going to do is I'm going to view folder. In the view one, I'm going to write a simple hello world kind of syntax. So it automatically sees some, as if you see, it has provided with us some basic code, etc. So we'll understand each of these blocks of code as well in our subsequent classes. But now you can type of just, sorry. So under content, you can just says admin generated. So put a text tag and give a text property as welcome to UFI programming. Okay, just give it this name. And now once you have the project, so you see first demo was our name. So you can just right click on it and click on preview application. So if you see on the right click of it, you'll have preview application. So here it prompts you with multiple ways. So these are again meant for various scenarios. If you want to do any unit testing or anything, we'll opt these particular options. If you want to run locally or you want to run using OData service, etc., various options we select. First one by default you can select. We'll understand gradually which one to use in which cases. If you see on top of Node.js, all these comments are being run now. That's the reason we have installed Node.js. Now, if it says it is has run already, so now it will automatically open in the default browser. So if you see, it says as welcome to UFI programming. Okay. So this is your first check whether all your tools are ready, whether you are having everything ready for practicing as a playground. I think you can just give it a shot this one today, and tomorrow we'll discuss in detail about how to further understand the concepts, etc.
Sure.
Yeah.
And quickly, can I? So I tried to look at that link, that YouTube link, and the Git link that I got
Okay.
from the email, but I think it's not working for me. Both links.
Okay.
And I created my repository in GitHub. Just don't know. I think I lost that screen where you mentioned how to sort of like upload the folders right into that.
Okay. 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 Sure. I'll quickly give a. So if I think let me check the access because I have access. I'll just add your email ID in that YouTube playlist. and because that is a private folder, it might be because of access, you may not
Yeah.
be able to
Yeah.
access, and just check on that. And regarding this one as well, if you just if you selected a place, see, first thing you have to do is on the local folder, you just create a new folder structure where if you have created all this structure, just put as a project folder, and within this you can just create some two folders, one as daily and one more as as week one. For now, you give it this way. Whenever we are doing subsequent classes, you can put subsequent folders. So this structure, now today, if you're practicing hello world program, right, or any snippets which you are practicing, etc. So you can place it your code snippets, etc. Everything here. So what are doing your activity today what we learned, we'll put in practice, and we'll have those snippets available in the daily folder. So in the daily folder, in this week learnings, what all we have, we'll try to do one use case and would put it that as a on some use case, proper use case for our reference, and we will put it in week one folder. So this structure, if you create daily learnings, you can put it this way. And the same thing what I do is whatever we are learning in the class, I'm putting in let's learn UFI. What I'm asking is you can create your own repository similarly, and you can track your progress, right? So
Yeah.
what I have done is here, if you logged in, you can click on new repository. Okay.
Okay.
So when you click on plus icon on top, you'll have option of new repository.
Yeah.
So here you can give your own name, any name which you are comfortable, and you can give a description. And if you want nobody else to access this particular thing, you can set as
Private.
private.
Yeah.
Okay. So this works only when I think I haven't invited you as a collaborator. So if it is you set as private, you have to invite them to access that particular repository. I think for the both cases, I may not have invited you, and you have to accept as well. So then you will be able to start checking it. So let me do that quickly. So here, if you let me do so demo file. So I'll just put as demo file. So you can create one name, keep it as public for your case for the simplicity. And here, if you see, there is an option of upload an existing file.
Under the code, huh? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, I see that.
Now you can drag and drop the structure which you created. See this, if there is no files, it won't copy it. GitHub does a basic check. If you're copying dummy folders, it doesn't allow. You have to add some content in it. Okay. So in this case, we had some content, so it got uploaded. So you add some content. End of the day, class when you're done, you can just drag and drop. So that way it will be easy. You need not to manually do all the tasks.
Right.
Straight away, just drag and drop, put it there, forget it. So that will be very easy for us to maintain the code. Okay, it will, if lost also local drive place anywhere, we can always have this on the go. So that is a
Advantage of this.
advantage. And I'll show you now, because we have to use some code versioning tool. So if multiple people have wanted to work on collaborate on the project, this GitHub will give you the advantage. So the same repository, I can parallelly work and you can also parallel work, and both of us can simultaneously build a project remotely. So